Hey, it's me, Mr. Red Fox. I will give my thoughts and opinions on the debate, are video games too long, and what I think should be at the appropriate length of the game. So without much ado, let's get into it after the cut. So the argument that's been going around, and I mean, this every few years this pops back up. People say that AAA games are unsustainable and that they're too goddamn long. How I feel about that is very simple. I think it depends on the game. I think RPGs need to have length to them, or it's not an RPG. Or at least, it needs to be, if you can sit down and complete an RPG in one sitting, that's not a role-playing game in my opinion. There are role-playing games, however, that kind of defy that convention. So, if you're playing something like Vampire the Masquerade, that's a game that, if you basically have a day, so 5 to 7 hours of time, a block of time, like a Saturday or a Friday night, you can get through that game in one sitting. Especially if you know the story path you want to take. And by the very nature of that game, it's really designed to be played, to have multiple playthroughs that determine what choices you make. But there's some games where it's like, okay, this doesn't need to be that long. For example, if you're playing something like an Assassin's Creed, I think the current Assassin's Creeds are too goddamn long. I think literally they are they're ridiculously have an extended length that doesn't lend itself to the good gameplay. Because basically a lot of the extra things that they have just feel like busy make work. It's like, oh well, you can do this. It's like, okay, well, all right. So, I mean, basically, my answer to, so is game length too long or too short? It basically just depends on, in my humble opinion, it's all based upon what the game is. A puzzle game doesn't really have a game length. Like Tetris. You can play Tetris at almost any given time. If you're playing something like, like a Final Fantasy or something like that, a classic JRPG, those have links to them. Skyrim, GTA, games that have RPG-like aspects, they're meant to be long and have lots of gameplay length. But some games don't need to be really long, like a beat 'em up, unless you're doing something like Yakuza, where there's a lot of side content, stuff like that, and it's kind of RPG-ish in how they do things. It doesn't need to be that long. So, I mean, it just basically depends on how you feel about these things. But those are my own personal opinions. I could be wrong. So I'll get to the second part of this video where I'll talk about is AAA game development sustainable, and is it a good thing or a bad thing after the cut. The way I feel about AAA game development is I think that there needs to be a tiered approach to different types of games. What I mean by this is, there's different tiers of everything. Like, there's different types of eggs, right? There's your ultra premium gourmet style irradiated eggs, which basically have been pasteurized through radiation. So basically, any salmonella that may be in those eggs has been destroyed through, low spectrum radiation. And then there's stuff where it's like, okay, well, this is, those are like your ultra premium stuff, or organic eggs. And then there's stuff that's like, well, this came from a farm and we did the best we could, blah blah blah. And these are like 99 cents. These are 78 cents and 86 cents and 99 cents. So, I mean, there's a tiered approach to every other product. They're cars they're cars that you can get under like $8,000, brand new, but they're on the cheaper end of the spectrum. Then you have cars that are like, 10, 15, 20, and then you have cars that are like, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 with all the bells and whistles. So basically, it's all about, it all boils down to, essentially, there are different tiers for other products, and yet in video games, the mid-tier games that are like $40, $30 don't exist anymore. Like, it's either $60 or indies, and that is unsustainable. I think the AAA gaming business model, where you focus on fantastic graphics and everything else kind of falls apart, I think that is kind of falling apart. I think that is unsustainable. And I think they do need to go back to having more of a balanced approach to how they make games. There needs to be a middle market. There needs to be a lower tier market, indie, upper, AAA, AA. They need to bring that back. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Probably not. Because, gamers have been fooled into thinking that everything revolves around graphics, and, gameplay concepts don't matter. Just spending tons and tons of money and time on bullshit is what's important. So, basically the snake is eating its own tail. So, I mean, I think that it's not going to get better. So with that being said, I'll get to the conclusion after the cut. So, in conclusion, I think that game length depends on the type of game. I think if you're talking about RPGs, those need to have length to them. If you're talking about different, like, other types of genres, like action games, open world games, it depends on what you're doing. The option needs to be there. But I mean, are you adding meaningful content, or are you just padding things out? So that's the dependency. As far as AAA gaming, no, it's not sustainable. But I don't think the industry is going to change until there's a major crash. So that being said, that's the end of this video. You can reach the channel at mrredfoxbsbusters@gmail.com, or at Twitter at Matthew Wesley at mrredfox91, or at the Discord, which there's a link underneath this video. That being said, peace, good night, and arrivederci.